Go ahead. All right, here we go. Hi, Rob. Glad to catch you online. I wanted to connect. We've been talking a little bit for the past few days over a few different things, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity to kind of chat, to record this, and to share a little bit about, who's the guy behind the McDojo Life, and the guy who's kind of unveiling a lot of stuff out there. So we'll try to keep it, concise. Maybe it'll be the first part, and we'll do more later. But at least this is a first introduction and just the first chapter. Maybe do you wanna introduce yourself a little bit as to just a bit of background and about you?
Yeah, for sure. So I run a web entity, I guess you could say a brand called McDojo Life. And so I call out fakes, frauds, phonies, con men, pedophiles, and cults in the martial arts industry. I've been doing that for about a decade. I've been in the martial arts industry since I was 12 for about 26 years of my life. I have 2 black belts and a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was a school owner for about 4 years. I got bought out by another company because they liked the business systems that I did. I started working for them as a striking coach and helping out with their other programs. Then McDojo Life took off about, like I said, 10 years ago. And I've been doing McDojo Life and martial arts business consulting now for about a decade, because they kind of went hand in hand, oddly enough. I'm a lifelong martial artist. Is what I do.
Nice. Well, your path explains a lot, and it gives, again, legitimacy, if it's at all needed, in what you do with McDojo Life, which is really, like you said, to basically expose things and kind of sometimes right the wrongs and basically base things out of facts rather than what sometimes people put out there, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the important part about our industry, right? Honor, integrity, respect, things like that. And then when you have somebody who comes forward in a way that is lying or nefarious or only self-serving, then what winds up happening is you wind up getting a industry that is kind of polluted, like it is currently, with a lot of people who are just kind of not really caring about their students. It's all about them. And we've been talking for the last couple of days, and there's definitely an example that I gave you recently. And it's a shame because what those people do is they wind up piggybacking on other people's success in order to try to boost themselves up. And they do so based off of lies, which is not beneficial to anyone, especially a paying customer who's trying to learn from somebody who might have those traits of honor, integrity, respect, things like that.
Yeah, and it comes in very different forms and different levels, right? You have the funny and entertaining, the a lot of the content that you post, where you look at it and you just can't help but just, it's entertainment to the person who just watch it, but they're trying to be very serious, and some people follow them, but that's the extreme, and usually it's a little bit more harmless. But then you have the in between, where people might think that they're legit, they're the real thing, and in the end it ends up either potentially being dangerous or something that's definitely going to be detrimental to their students or whoever follows them.
For sure. And to outside entities, it's very convoluted. It's kind of hard to weed through the good and the bad if you've never done martial arts. It'd be very similar to going to a mechanic for your car, and your car's not running, so you go to the mechanic, he gives you a price, and now your car is running. But if you went to a second mechanic, you go, oh, well, he's way overcharging you. But you would have never known that because all you know is there was a problem and it got solved. Well, martial arts is very similar. You can look at someone for face value, and then once you look at that, you go, oh, this guy's a part of a martial arts hall of fame. What most people don't realize is 90% of martial arts, 99% of martial arts hall of fames, you have to pay to be in. Like, you pay them.
Or so it's done by them. Like I've realized someone I was following for a while. I was like, oh yeah, he's like Hall of Fame, and then he knows all these people are in the Hall of Fame, and then I realized they were the ones who created it.
Yeah, that's how most Hall of Fames are. And so, like, people will wave this banner around. It'll be this big certificate, and they'll hold it up, and they'll be like, I'm in the Hall of Fame. It's like, really? Like, did they induct you, or did you contact them to be inducted? Did they reach out to you, or did you reach out to them? Did you have to pay them anything? And even if you had to reach out to someone alone, even without a payment, let's say you just hypothetically reached out to an organization, said, I want to be in this Hall of Fame. That's not really how fame works. Like,
Yeah.
Hall of Fame, fame means they would know who you are, not you found out about them and begged them to be in it, you know?
Yeah.
So I just
Unless
always found
there's a
that confusing.
unless there's a process to kind of like, all right, well, you want to be in that Hall of Fame, or you want to be recognized, then well, you got to show credentials, and so there's a vetting process, right? If anything, like something that I wanted to talk about when it comes to, you know, like basically how do you define when it's what we call a McDojo, right? Where it's, you know, the name speaks for itself, where it's really not, it's basically a joke, and I'll take it that way, or it's something that's serious. Like how would you define it? How do you decide that's what it is?
So, in order to solve any problem, you have to be able to define it first. So, the very first thing I notice is that the industry has a very odd standard of what they consider a McDojo. And most of those traditional standards of what someone would call a McDojo don't actually hold up because they're 90% opinion based. So,
Mm.
some will be, oh, that guy only cares about money. How do you know that? Like, most people who
Yeah.
actually start martial arts studios don't do so because we're just going to get blind rich doing martial arts.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty well known that in the industry, unless you actually do know about the business, that it is not an easy job to just make a ton of money at. It is a passion job. So most people, even if they are financially successful in the industry, didn't start specifically with the goal of just ripping people off. Now they might eventually start going down that path, and that's different if it's legitimate fraud. But most people don't act that way, or they'll go, that person, they have 250 students, but we have 50 students, and our 50 are the best. It's
Mm.
like, okay, well, so they're helping 250 people, and you're helping 50 people, and you think that them helping 250 people is bad?
Mm.
Like, just because they run a martial arts studio and they're helping their individual students reach their goals doesn't mean it's a bad studio. Just
Yeah.
because they're financially successful doesn't mean it's a bad studio. So it
Yeah.
took a while to process all of this normalized, nonsensical speak in the industry. And it kind of boils down to a couple things. One, rule number one for what I consider a McDojo is someone who is a pedophile or a registered sex offender. If someone is a pedophile or a registered sex offender, martial arts is a breeding ground for them to be able to take advantage of people. And that to me is way more important than can that guy kick well?
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
at
Because that's
what,
dangerous. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So that would be rule number one. Rule number two is unsafe training practices and cult like behavior. Um, so, for instance, an unsafe training practice would be okay, stand there, put your hands behind your back, and let me tee off on your head and punch you in the head. There's no benefit to that. It doesn't make you better at anything. It conditions you to accept being hit instead of avoiding being hit,
Yep.
and it damages you so that way it will ruin your career if you decided to be a fighter. So the goal is to not get hit, not to just let someone hit you.
Yep.
And the cult-like behavior you'll see in all kinds of martial arts. It's very easy to form a cult in martial arts. But most people say, I make fun of all the traditional martial arts, which is not true. So I'll go ahead and give you an example from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There are certain schools that do something called a gauntlet. And what that is they'll take a belt, everybody takes their belts off, everyone lines up on either side of the room. And once you've received your promotion, which means you already are that belt, hey, you're a new black belt, you're a purple belt, whatever, that's done.
Go through that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they just whip you with belts. And for some reason, people don't see that as odd. They're like, oh man, it's a rite of passage.
It's
But why?
tradition. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what's happening now is you have convinced yourself that because everybody else was doing it, that this somehow benefits you. It doesn't make you better at jujitsu if you do it, and it doesn't make you worse at jujitsu if you don't do it. So it's a useless tradition other than this camaraderie, which is 9 times out of 10 a way of brainwashing you. If I told you that with any other job, you would think I was insane. If
Mm.
I was like, hey guys, Steve, he just got promoted from HR. Everybody give a hand for Steve. All right, now take off your belts and let's whip him. Like, you would think that is insane behavior, but for some reason in martial arts, people have been convinced that that's the tough thing to
That's
do.
okay. Yeah.
It's nonsense. So that's rule number two. Rule number three is shady business practices. So a shady business practice is not what most people, I think in the industry. They'll go, that guy charges too much. How much is too much?
Yeah.
Just because something is too much for you doesn't mean it's too expensive for someone else. There's a reason I don't own a Lamborghini. It's not because a Lamborghini is too expensive. It's because a Lamborghini is too expensive for me. Other people can afford it. So clearly, Lamborghini's been in business for a long time. They're not overcharging. They're just charging what their consumer base is willing to pay. That's not a shady business practice as long as they're honest.
Yeah.
Now, a shady business practice would be, hey, it only costs $100 a month. And then after the first month, they go, oh, you have a belt test in a month. That's going to cost you an extra 20. They're like, whoa, you didn't tell me about that. Oh, by the way, you're going to move up to the advanced program. You're going to need all new gear. Well, you didn't tell me that. You know what I'm saying? So if they keep tacking on and lying, that's different. That's a shady business practice.
Yep.
Rule number 4 is mislabeling technique. Labeling. Sorry, I'm just trying to write these down as I go because I have 5 rules, and every time I get called up on the spot, I try to make sure that I get them. Unsafe training practice, cult-like behavior, mislabeling technique. So mislabeling a technique is fairly simple. It's basically like lying to you. So if somebody says, hey, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do a cardio kickboxing class. Okay. Or, oh yeah, and no touch knockouts. Sorry, that was the other one. So obviously, like, we'll start with no touch knockouts on that caveat. A no touch knockout is a mislabel. I'm saying that I can knock you out without touching you with my chi powers. Now, around the world, there are different terms that this goes by. Chi, C-H-I, ki, Q-I, ki, K-I. Sometimes people will use aki as another way of doing this. Sometimes people will call it fa jing, which is, again, there's one of those things that, okay, well, that's...
of energy,
yeah, there's a guy out there who's going to be like, that's not what fa jing is. That's what people hide behind in terms of how they explain it to people. So if that's not the case, go find the guy who's lying about fa jing and go tell him, don't tell me, because this is just my research, right? And then, of course, you have things like the Holy Spirit. Oh my God, Jesus got you, and we all fly back 50 feet. Like, no, he didn't.
It does make for fun videos, though.
It's hilarious, right? But at the end of the day, that's mislabeling. That's a lie. And people truly believe this. And if you tried some of these things in a self-defense situation and you believed it, you would be hurt. And then, of course, like if you go to a cardio kickboxing class and you're hitting a bag and having fun, there's nothing wrong with that. You're not there to become a world champion. But if you go to a cardio kickboxing class and just based off of that, they say you're going to be a world champion kickboxer, that's not true. Like there's a lot that goes into that. So that's mislabeling. So we have sex offenders, unsafe training practices, cult-like behavior. We have shady business practices. Oh yeah, and then the last one, lying about your belt rank or fight record. So lying about your belt rank or your fight record is a big lie. And it's probably the first issue that comes across that goes along with that Hall of Fame thing, right? Are you really in a Hall of Fame that they reached out to you and they wanted you to be a part of it? Or are you using that to lie and say, I'm a part of a Hall of Fame that I had
building your own fame.
Exactly. So a lot of people do this. So lying about your belt rank is usually the first conversation that you'll have with an instructor. If I go to an instructor, I go, hey, tell me a little bit about the gym. Well, I am, which is the first conversation we had here, right? Here's my credentials. I told you my credentials. So if somebody lied about their belt rank or their fight record, then what winds up happening is that's the first thing they're going to have a conversation with you about. They'll probably lie about everything else. So, like, you know, the guy we were talking about privately, he definitely has tried to pad his resume about his fight record. But again, these are very easy things to find because all you have to do is just go to the instructor, and when
especially
the instructor,
now, you can find out about pretty much everything online. So
yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, well, you know, you only trained with a guy for 4 months. Okay, okay, you only trained with a guy for 4 months, and then they made you have to compete, and then when you did compete, you didn't win. So it's like, okay, so why lie about that? Just be honest. If you didn't win, that's okay. If you competed and you were
the journey,
then that's okay. But like, don't sit there and try to brag that you're some kind of fighter if you haven't been there and done that, because that's a slap in the face to people who did.
And I think it's hard. Well, not hard, but I think the challenge for people who, you know, maybe haven't been in the martial arts, or even those who've been around and don't necessarily it's a new scene or a new place or whatever. It's kind of hard to find that. And to go back on one of the points that you talked about when it comes to the business side of things, that's something that I actually find, like, originally I think McDojo was about that. It's like, oh yeah, they're all, like you said, they're all about money. And the sad thing about this, I agree. So again, malpractices and dishonest practices are something that are really to be careful of. But I think there's also another stigma, and I'm from France, and it's definitely one there, is if you're making money, if you're making a living, out of martial arts, that's something wrong. It's like you become a McDojo. Like martial arts as a even just saying martial arts as a business sounds wrong. And I think it's a shame, because you're a lawyer, you will have studied X number of years, and then eventually you get paid for the knowledge and the experience you have. And for a martial artist, and we both know many of them, if not the majority, who are extremely talented, extremely experienced, extremely researched, but they just don't have students because they don't market themselves. And in some places it's a stigma to charge for it. And the problem is that it becomes a vicious circle, because you can't do that. Then you have a normal day job, and then in the evening you go and teach, but you can't dedicate your whole time to martial arts. So I think that's also almost on the other end of the spectrum, something that's sad, because you have amazing people who just don't, like, no, I can't charge. And then basically they can't charge what they need to charge, to be able to just do this full time and dedicate themselves to it.
And this is a major stigma that we have to get rid of in the industry. People look at people who are successful financially in the martial arts industry and automatically label them as a McDojo. But then they'll go to any job in the world, any job, and they'll look at that and they're okay with anyone else making money. But don't make money in this industry. Why? Because someone told you it was wrong. Most people actually avoid, I've noticed, trying to even learn the business side. And the irony of that, and over the last decade dedicated to studying McDojos, that I found, most places that are McDojos are not financially successful. Like they'll do things like, here's one cute one that I always try to tell people to avoid, is they'll have somebody working for them for free in exchange for classes. So one, that's a terrible mindset, because what you're doing is you're literally taking advantage of someone. You are. Because if you actually paid them for the actual job, they would be able to afford your classes and their light bill and their rent and be able to make things better. But what they'll do is they'll say, hey, I just need you to answer phones. That's very useless in terms of business. If you had that person actually going and treating it like a business, not only would your business run better, your students would be better. Because imagine this, how you do something is how you do everything. So if I go to a martial arts studio and no one greets me when I walk in the door, automatically as a student, that's a red flag, because how do I know you even care about me in the first place? So you might have just lost a student right there because of a poor business practice. So I don't even get, as a student, get to train here, which, by the way, I've experimented on this, and there are definitely a lot of gyms who do not call you back. There are a lot of gyms who do not welcome you when you walk in the door. There are a lot of gyms, when you get there, they blame you for not signing up, which never works for any business, by the way. Nike doesn't look when they don't sell a shoe and go, oh, the customer's wrong. They're late. No, that's not how you grow.
That's where it's tough. And and I think it's changing. And honestly, I think here in the US, it's still better than in a lot of places. Again, I find it, in Europe, and again, I'm generalizing. So there's obviously exceptions, and people are doing everything really admirably well. But otherwise, it's like you say, you almost avoid it. It's like, this is a club, it's an association, and I'm here to teach, and I'm not going to do all the fluff around it, like welcome you and say hi and what are your goals, and just find out more about you, and let me show you how we're going to help you,
and that's selfish. That's just something selfish.
But again, like, I think sometimes I don't think sometimes it's even on purpose. It's like, oh no, I don't want to do it. Like, that's not my role. I'm the master. I'm the whatever. But I think sometimes it's out of I don't know if shame is the right word, but it's just like habits. Like, nobody else does it. Like, I have no other martial arts schools, and they don't do it. If I start to do it, people are going to be like, oh, it's just too businessy, but no,
that's kind of the ridiculous part, is like, for instance, most schools don't even do 246 calls. Most schools don't do 246 calls. It is the easiest thing you could do. It actually shows that you care, and it will help.
The what? Sorry, they don't do what?
A 246 call. Are you familiar?
Yeah.
So if a student doesn't show up for 2 weeks, call them. hey man, I'm wondering if you're okay. We haven't heard from you in 2 weeks. I want to make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
That's not what most schools do.
Yeah.
But the irony is the people who are calling a school a McDojo don't do that.
Yeah.
But the people who will point the finger and say that's a McDojo also will only call the student when they owe them money.
Yeah.
How ironic is that?
Yeah.
So they'll be like, hey man, I noticed you're missing your payment. And they'd be like, dude, I've been gone for like a month. Like
Yeah.
you didn't care until I owed you.
Yeah.
Like
Well, one way that, like, the way I put it is, if it's what is good for students should be good for business, and what's good for business should be good for students, right? It's the same thing. And that's how I explain it sometimes to those who are a bit, just don't like the idea of like just thinking through what you do, because if you do, it's good for your business and for the student who keeps training. Like, if the student gives up after 2 months, not only it's bad for your business because you lost a student, but whatever you wanted to teach them, whatever difference you wanted to make in their life, it's just not going to happen because they quit. So it's same thing. If I do something and it's like, oh, now I don't know, maybe you need this piece of equipment. If it's only good for the business but it's not good for the student, that's where there's a disconnect, right? But it's like, no, you need to buy this because you're going to learn better, you're going to learn faster, that's the right tool to use, or whatever it is, right? But I think as long as you keep that mindset, then it's balanced. It's good for the business and it's good for the student. If it's good for the student and not good for the business, then you're putting yourself at risk at basically shutting your doors. So, but
Absolutely.
if you keep those two balanced, then I think that's when you get the right recipe, or at least the right mindset.
Yeah, and if you treat your business, your martial arts studio, like a business, you will create better students.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is
you care about it.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you're actually taking the time to systemize things. You're going, you know what? Over here, I have a system for handling a phone call. Over here, I have a system for curriculum. If I don't have a system for curriculum, I'm just teaching whatever I feel like.
Yep. Yeah.
That's automatically less valuable to your student. Or you go, hey, good job for winning that gold medal. Well, that's not how a business would work. A business would say, hey, man, you did really good job on that gold medal. On Monday, when you get back to class, I have a couple things I want to cover so that way we can keep getting you gold medals.
Yep.
Yeah. Because now it's a system. There's always something to make better and work on and to correct. And that's how business works.
Yep. There's another thing that you pointed out, one of your rules that's absolutely true. And I think even within a dojo, within a school, like for us, like you said, mislabeling, right? And like some people will say, oh yeah, this whatever school doing whatever system, they're really just not good because they do this. And I think, like, oh, they they're jumping and running and dancing and they put music on and they're doing whatever. Like, look, if they clearly advertise that's what they do and they're doing it for fun and for cardio and for exercise, whatever, then they're doing it great. It's where it's a problem is if they say, yeah, this is great for self-defense. That's when it's an issue. And even like when we teach something, like again for our system, some of the stuff, it's not self-defense. It's good for coordination, maybe even like we do stick stuff, right? Some of the stick disarms, it's like, look, it really just looks cool. It's good for coordination, but mostly again, it just really looks cool. That's why we do it. When it comes to sparring or to fighting, well, this is most likely what you're going to use, right? So as long as you know why you teach it and you communicate about it, then I think anything's fine. Again, I've had like a school in Singapore. One of my students came like, oh yeah, I used to train with this guy. He has a golden belt and his uniform is golden, like the pants and the jacket. And then we're doing like dancing and stuff. And it's like, oh, like why does he do it? Like, what's the purpose? He's like, no, it's just fun, and there's really good like community and stuff. I said, did he ever talk about self-defense? I said, no, like actually that he sent me here for self-defense. So I said, then he's doing an amazing job. As long as it's clear, that's okay.
About your students' goals. Our job as coaches is to help our students reach their goals, right? Yep. So let's say, for instance, you're an instructor and you're obese. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not going through the motions and you're not leading by example. Then what happens is that's a red flag for a student who might be coming to you specifically to learn how to lose weight.
Yeah.
So that's a disservice to them as an instructor if we show up obese or overweight, like well overweight, and all of a sudden here comes a student and they're looking to lose weight. How could you possibly guide them if you're not leading by example? And that's a mislabel. You're saying I'm an instructor. No, you're not. Like an instructor has certain things that they have to be able to do. And one of them is touch their toes, so like, It's basic stuff. And yes, life happens, things happen to people, but there's definitely something to be said about walking the walk.
Yeah.
And as an instructor, leading by example is extremely important.
Yeah.
So I really hope that at the end of the day, hopefully people learned a little bit about what I do and what I'm looking to do and help out clean the organizations up a little bit based off these simple rules. Nothing,
Yeah.
if somebody goes, and you'll notice I don't really post a lot of videos or any videos of people just like punching and kicking in the air by themselves unless it's like a joke or it's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if it's one of those things where somebody's like, oh, look at this guy, he's hitting a bag and he sucks, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care that he sucks
Yeah.
hitting a bag because he's working out. He's doing something,
Just do
right?
it. Yeah, exactly. Like you said, as long as it's like you say, not mislabeled or whatever. It's not about making fun of people. Definitely not. Everyone's any like, somewhere on the journey, on the process, but it's when it's misaligned with what they advertise, maybe.
Absolutely.
And maybe you can, like, just as one of the last things that we can talk about, maybe you can share more. You were saying with me privately before, you have your website project that kind of will aims to help a little bit um, to systemize that legitimacy and try to provide that guidance and that reference for people.
For sure. So over the years, I've done a ton of stories, and there are a lot of people in the industry who have done nefarious things, whether they've lied about certain things or whether they've done criminal acts or whether they've been in the news for something good or something bad. And so the website will be a search engine, and it'll have, for now, we have a massive list of people who have been arrested for various crimes who were instructors or working in a martial arts studio. Also, we've done tons of like videos like McDojo breakdowns where we discuss like why this particular thing is incorrect based off of what this person has said or done. Like, for instance, someone might not have committed a crime if they believe they can knock someone out with their mind, right? But they're still teaching that, and people should be aware before they sign up with that studio that that is something they're teaching.
It's still
Or,
criminal.
so
It's not a crime, but it's criminal.
so they can look up their instructor, type that in based off of anywhere in the world, and they can go, okay, well, in, let's say, Ireland, who out of Ireland is as a martial arts instructor who's been arrested for a crime, blah, blah, blah. And then it'll have a list and it'll pop that up. There's also a feature where you can add someone. So if you're like, hey, this person isn't on your list, but I have proof, they can send that proof to us. We'll look over it and verify the proof. And if we can confirm, then that will add to the list. And we'll be able to add news articles or videos or stories, any evidence we'll have right there, so that way people are aware. Now, right now, this list is thousands of people, thousands.
That's scary. And that's international, right? It's not just in the US.
Yes. So,
wow.
And the majority of that right now is the US, just because I'm from the US. So that's the news that I get primarily. But because the website will be able to be global, people will be able to send that information from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And we can prove or disprove whatever they say, or do a breakdown video about why what they're teaching is incorrect, like the mislabeling or the no-touch knockouts or the cult-like behavior. So we'll be able to have that as a system. So someone can type in their name of their instructor, and if they pop up anywhere on the site, they can see if that person has either done great things in the industry or if that person's just full of it or they're a criminal.
Wow, that's amazing. That's going to be a lot of work, and especially if it's, if you're doing the research and the fact checking and stuff like that. But I think it's really important, and I think even, I mean, I maybe you'll be able to, really have a list that's so extensive that everyone is there. But I think even just having that kind of like sends the message as well, and anyone who who might be thinking of doing some funny business might be like, yeah, like that. Now there's more and more fact checking, and there's there's this website, and most likely if something happens, I'm gonna get it. So I think it also kind of creates a bit of a watchdog, for lack of a better term, to just to keep an eye on stuff and to say, hey, like it's not all like that. And obviously it's only a very small minority that comes up with stuff like that, but that small minority needs to be called out. And like you say, very factually, it's nothing to do with, oh, I don't believe in this system and I don't believe in that system. And even like, I think it's not like, oh, this doesn't work for self-defense. That's usually the big debate, right? Online is like they show a technique and they're like, oh, this doesn't work for self-defense, then maybe it's a drill, maybe it's a training drill. It's not supposed to work for self-defense. But I think when it gets to when it's dangerous and misleading to the point that, like you say, you think you're equipped for it and you're not, that's where it becomes, I think, something that's not a matter of being objective or subjective. It's just plain dangerous.
Facts. Just facts, and then that way people can make their own decisions.
Yeah,
that's actually how we got talking. Was I reached out to you because I was warning you about someone, and when it comes down to it, like, I just gave you facts. I was like, look, as crazy as what I'm about to tell you sounds, because it was crazy.
Word for word, that's what it was. Yeah.
I was like, look, this is a fact. I can show you that. And like, you know, and that's the wild thing about like the internet is a lot of that stuff is forever. And so when someone starts doing like something nefarious, the truth will always pop its ugly head back out. And you know, that's the goal, and that's pretty much what I do. And I just do that every day. If somebody has done something nefarious, or they're lying, or they're trying to harass, or they've committed some type of a crime, I just try to give people that information, and the website will consolidate that and make it easy for people.
That's amazing. And I again, it does make for some really funny videos once in a while. And I think that, like, you know, on Instagram and stuff like that, there's some really fun stuff. But behind it, I think it's good and it gets people's attention. But I think behind it, there's really something important to be done to to weed out the very few people who are just out there for basically not for the good reasons. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate it. I'm sure we'll get to chat more and to talk more, and maybe once the website is out, we can do something again and talk about it a bit more. But I think it's great. I think all the time you're investing and you're doing to really put this out there is amazing, and I think it will be for sure very beneficial. So thanks a lot for that.
Thank you for the support, man. I appreciate it. And I love talking shop, so I appreciate you giving me a little bit of your time so we can chit chat.
Appreciate that. Well, take care then, and we'll talk again soon.
Yes, sir.
All right, let me